We've been hearing about it in Ballard since at least 2015, I think, mentioned as a possibility. And it's taken a little while to get all the kind of budget and framework going around that at the city level. It is a program that something similar ran in Seattle for over 30 years, I think, and was cut in the budget about 2004. So we've had a real gap, and they're kind of redefining what it will be. So we're excited to hear what it used to be, but especially what it's going to be moving forward. And I know Ballard kind of has its own specific public safety issues, and this will be a citywide program, so we're curious to hear kind of what it might mean for Ballard as well as the city as a whole. And we're really trying to kind of keep a regular focus on public safety when we can with Ballard District Council, along with all the other civic topics that we cover. So last year we also had the LEAD, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program come. We had the Community Police Commission come. And some of these are the very first community meetings. I think this is the first time that the CSOs have presented to the community. So I would love to keep Ballard as really kind of at the forefront of getting community questions out there and participating as these different programs evolve. So get your questions ready. And with that, I think Sergeant Nelson, would you like to start? Or?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Truly an honor to be here. Truly an honor to work with this group of people. This program obviously has been, as Angie mentioned, been in the works for several years. I started this in January 9th. And I almost remember the hour because of how much this has taken to get to this point. But started this in January, and it's been a lot of hard work to get to this point. I'll tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Kevin Nelson, and I originally grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. And I came to the Seattle Police Department. Well, I grew up in Omaha. I actually worked for Omaha Police Department as well for 3 years. So just to give you a little bit of my background of where I come from. So I'm not a native of Seattle. However, this is my home now. I love this city. I don't live here yet, but it's, I won't rule it out. But that's kind of what's going on with in terms of like where I come from. I moved here in 2002, and I joined the Seattle Police Department, obviously, and I worked in patrol for 10 years-ish. I actually did a rotation here at the North Precinct, which was one of the most fun rotations that I ever had, like in my career, working in the North Precinct. A lot goes on here. So as a young man, when you're fighting crime, it's fun to go out and get bad guys, that type of thing. It was a very fun precinct to work, and we worked really hard, I think, to do that. From there, I went to mostly the Southwest Precinct, and I worked there for about 10 years. So that's the precinct that I called home for most of the time I was in patrol. So I went from there to our background investigations unit, and from there to our force investigations unit. If anybody's familiar with that, it's a unit that investigates officer-involved force, and if officer is injured, the unit that investigates those incidents. And I promoted 2 years ago-ish, somewhere around there, to sergeant. And I worked at the West Precinct for about a year and a half. And then I was fortunate enough to apply, interview, and get tasked with rebuilding and re-engineering this program. So this is like one of those things, and it's one of the most proudest moments of my life to actually be sitting up here, because what an honor to be like tasked to like bring back something that was so well received by our community, right? So I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. So with that being said, that's a little bit about me. I think that we'll probably answer more questions later. But we'll start because I want you to understand a little bit of what each of these officers actually have to offer and what their experience is in the past, and how they can actually maybe, how we're going to try to outreach and engage with our communities a little bit better, okay? So we'll start with Chris Inaba.
Yeah, Chris Inaba, the supervisor, and my background's in education, outreach, and public safety. I'm a native of Seattle, and I just came from the Downtown Seattle Association, so I was a supervisor in their ambassador program.
I'm Cindy Mullen. I am a Seattle native. I've worked with unions for the last almost 9 years. I'm really excited to maybe get some work done with our youth programs.
parking enforcement for the last 12 years, and I've moved over to be able to serve more on the community level and with outreach. I did a lot with the RVs and the RV remediation team. I attended a lot of the leads. I was involved with leads and the rest diversions. I'm excited to start something new and bring back what the CSOs was.
I'm Amanda Anderson. I originally am from Oregon. I went to school at Oregon State University. Go Bees. No Bees. Classification.
Ballard That's our high school mascot.
Okay. I got my Bachelor's of Science in Sociology with an emphasis in crime and justice. I moved to the Seattle area about 2 years ago. I'm from a teeny tiny town. So it's been quite an adjustment, but I am so excited to be here and to help serve this community. My background is working a lot with youth. I worked with Mary's Place for almost 2 years in the outreach engagement and conversion program and helped build their 30-day shelter that they're working on now.
I'm Justin Marchetti. I'm originally from New Jersey. I moved here in 2004. Right now, I coach 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball in the area. I live in Magnolia. So I coach Interbay Eagles football, a select basketball team in the area, and Little League and basketball in Magnolia. I have a stepson that goes to Ballard High School. Go Bees, go Bees. My work experience in Seattle mainly was with Swedish Medical Center as a security officer at the Ballard campus. So I'm very familiar with the challenges in this area. And then I was with the Seattle Public Library security for 8 years. And we did a lot of outreach and connected people with services and tried to prevent them from being trespassed from the library so they can enjoy the library services. And it's an extreme honor to be a part of this program. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jermaine Castillo. I'm from Renton, Washington. My background, I went to Eastern Washington University. I graduated with a criminal justice degree. After college, I interned at the Seattle District Court for the community court program. I was there for about a year. And then I went to probation. So I worked for the Washington State Department of Corrections as a community corrections officer. I worked with several offenses from, the sex offenses to the assaults, the robberies, and stuff like that. And then my most recent job was for the Federal Municipal Court as a probation officer. I was fortunate enough to get a partnership with South Seattle College to gain free tuition for the defendants that I supervised. It was an opportunity for my community over there to lift people up from their lifestyles to a new lifestyle which they were exposed to. And I'm very excited to be here and bring my experience and my resources to you. Thank you.
So there's a little bit of disclaimer to the group here is if there was a notion that we had everything figured out, that's actually, we probably look like it. but we do not have everything figured out with this program. And so it's gonna take a little bit of patience until we get to a point where we're fully functional, we have fully staffed, and we're actually engaged in terms of deploying in the community where you will actually see us in our uniforms. One of the biggest questions that we get is about the uniform, the card, that type of thing. So one of the key components of the community outreach that happened, 30+ meetings that happened throughout the city, is making sure that the CSO is distinguishable from a police officer. And we, I think, are meeting right now to actually we're working on our uniform. This is our uniform committee, because before this, it was a committee of one, which was me. And I think that it was gonna be really important to wait for this group to get here to see to get their input and try to see what this team should actually look like when we actually deploy in the street. So that will be coming, and we will be having more bodies. We're hiring, there's another one coming on next week, and after that, by the end of the year, we'll be at about 8 or 9, hopefully 10. And then next year, there's already money, there's budgeted for an additional 5 for the supervisor. So early March, late February, March, we should be at about 15 total CSO officers and then 3 supervisors of those CSOs. And it'll be teams of 5. One of the, Chief Diaz is obviously has a very big heart for youth and has a lot of experience with youth, and he wants us to continue our youth engagement and make sure that that's a key focus in all of our communities. So with that being said, we will have a heavy focus on youth engagement and youth diversion. So we're gonna, at some point, I'm sure we're gonna be soliciting ideas from you, whether we want them or not. I'm sure you're gonna have some ideas for us, and we're gonna take them and we'll run with them and see what we can do with it. But yes, that's the disclosure, is that do we have everything sorted out? No. When these folks interviewed, all except for one, I explained that the people that actually build this program will be the people that actually come into it. Because the way the CSO program was run, 2004, and it's basically going to be different in a few different aspects, because we're not going to be doing as much of the patrol function, at least in the early iteration of this. So we're really going to be trying to do like heavy community engagement and outreach, and connecting people with services. And what that means, we're still working with that with our partners to make sure that those partners understand what our boundaries are, and we're going to understand what theirs are, and we're going to make sure that the most important thing that we do is to support our police officers, support our community, and then support our partners. So that really wasn't, there wasn't a question really asked, but I just wanted to make sure I kind of gave that overall. So there may be times you have a question related to a particular issue. The group up here, they were all selected because of different experiences that they have. And so you may ask a question of me, and I may defer that question to either Chris or whomever else is on the panel. So if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Okay. Time for questions?
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Thank all, I really want to thank all of you for choosing this path, and thank you very much for giving the effort to resurrect it. My question really is, if we're sitting here in December of 2020, and you look back on the year and you say, wow, we really achieved our goals, what will be different, what will you have achieved, and what are the greatest risks you see to being able to achieve them?
Well, I don't know exactly how this is going to be tracked in terms of data. Maybe Chris will be able to weigh in here. But even tonight, me and Brent had a conversation about the library. And we were discussing the fact that the library closes at a certain time. And the suggestion was that maybe the patrol could actually lock the facility up. So as a patrol officer, me and Brent talked, and I said, Brent, that probably won't happen. Our patrol officers are working really, really hard, racing down priority 1 calls, trying to keep our community safe. And so, although it would be great if we actually could do that, it'd be really hard to just lock somebody into a certain time like that, because at that particular time is when something's going to happen, and the library's not going to get locked up. There's going to be a whole lot of issues surrounding it that we'll have to go back and fix later, because we wouldn't have held up our bargain as a patrol officer. So getting to the point is, this is a gap somewhere, right? And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to fill the gaps where patrol may not be able to actually provide a service. So we just brainstormed today, and we're like, well, we might be working up until 9, 10 o'clock. And as a CSO officer, we may have a little bit more time and flexibility to actually carry out a mission like that. If we work with Brent and the other partners, whoever that might be with the libraries, we may be able to come and lock the library up so that your community and your meetings could be held until 8:30, 9 o'clock. So that's kind of what I envision, and I don't know exactly how that's going to be tracked. I think that we will have a reporting system. I'm not sure how we will do it exactly.
Great.
Yeah, I feel like dancing. Yeah. But I believe that there will be many other instances like that where there's a service that police just cannot provide at the time, where we are otherwise maybe walking away and saying, unfortunately, we can't help because of priority one calls and such, where the CSO officer can step in. The other example that I give is, as a patrol officer, we often have welfare checks and that type thing where, and this, I've ran into this personally, and it's kind of dear to my heart because this population is really it's sensitive for me because I had a grandmother that raised me and everything. So, the welfare check of the grandmother who's nobody's heard from for 2 days, and everybody's worried that something happened to, Mrs. Johnson, let's say. So the officers go, they knock on the door, Miss Johnson answers the door, but maybe she doesn't have a phone, maybe she doesn't have any food, maybe her family hasn't heard from her. An officer can only stay in that home so long with the resources that we've been trained with, right? So the CSO officer, in theory, is what my hope is that those are the type of calls where we can call this group of people who have this vast knowledge to be able to come into that situation at the request of a patrol officer and provide a service so that that patrol officer can get back to that priority one call and, back to saving lives and saving property and, keeping the peace. So that's kind of my vision. Yes.
So, thank you. And I've got a couple of questions. One is, I'll just lay it out there. One is, how do we buy for your time? Because I'm sure everybody's going to want in the city. And Ballard is feeling beleaguered. And secondly, is this a correct way of saying it? Are you sort of like second responders? Or how do we know whether to call the regular police versus you?
Well, so we won't be dispatched
Okay.
to, there will be a CSO information line where you can leave information if there's something in your community that you are requesting, something that we can probably help with. However, we won't be dispatched to calls, in terms of crisis calls and that type of thing. We'll be coming at the request of a patrol officer more than likely.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
So when you think about the CSO program, think about it as a support for all of our community partners, a support for you, a support for our officers, and then a support for our communities. So there was a question, a second part of your question. I'm really sorry I didn't answer it. We'll go back to it if we can do this first. But that's what I imagine. Anybody got anything you want to add?
I think, like you said, people are always wanting to talk to us, and we may not have all the answers to those questions or solutions to the problems, but I think one thing we can, pretty much promise is that we're always going to be there to listen to people, and we will never turn anybody away. So, we're going to be the ears of the community and be the liaison between the community and SPD.
We're really focused on delivering a high standard of customer service. This is actually one of the ideas that Chris has brought up several different times, is to make sure that we can not walk away without maybe delivering some type of an answer, or solution, or feedback, or follow-up. So a high level of customer service is what I want the community to expect from us. That's an expectation that I have of this team, and I think that's one that it's fair to have of us.
So you said that you won't be dispatched, so I assume if we call 911 about someone in crisis, they're not going to request that you go or something like that. But you said that you'd be responding to welfare checks, and that is something that gets dispatched by 911. So how would you get that call?
We would, so most calls at this point, the way we have this laid out, it would be at the request of patrol. So once patrol gets to a scene and makes sure a scene is safe, then they would call, if we're available, they'll call if there's a service that we can provide and our other partners are not available and there's something that we can deliver, then whether it be outreach in terms of trying to find a bed or something like that, and the first partners are not available, if it's what's that, the navigation team? Yeah. So, but there's just services that where if we may not be necessarily be primary, but we can fill in the gaps. If there's a need, we can get there and try to fill in the gap of whatever that need is in terms of like trying to deliver a service and navigate someone to the proper service.
So as an example, we have a ton of crisis calls in Ballard.
Right.
That's like one of the big things. So right now, when a lot of people call in, sometimes we'll get a response, but we don't always get a response to people in crisis. And I'm wondering how you guys fit into that, since that's one of our big problems.
It's going to be like after the fact at the request of patrol. But patrol responds to priority one type calls. These are civilian officers. We're not armed. Well, they're not armed. I am. They're not armed. They will receive some training to make sure that they're able to defend themselves. But this is not like a first response type unit. This is not set up that way. So I think that it's going to be really important to make sure that we don't confuse what the services that first responders provide versus what CSOs will provide. It's a pretty.
I understand the
Yeah.
problem because, for one thing, the police officers union probably doesn't want you guys taking over their job, so part of their job.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother story.
Right.
I don't even want to.
Maybe I can help
Yes.
answer that question because we have a crisis intervention team that is actually one of the leaders throughout the nation in response to people in crisis. It's a squad or two. I think there's 2 squads of officers that respond at the behest of patrol to deal, or even 911 sometimes calls the crisis intervention team. But these again those are sworn armed police officers. These are non-sworn civilian personnel that will not be carrying guns. I don't believe you're going to be carrying less lethal. No, so they're not going to have anything like that. So we would never ask them, put them in harm's way. We'll continue to work, deal with the mental health issues the way we have been using our crisis intervention team, our CRT crisis response team, crisis intervention team, patrol officers, mental health professionals. I do know that the mayor is looking at this problem regionally with the county executive to deal with mental health issues, to determine how best to handle these people because of the issues of certain people that are going through crisis but do not present a danger to themselves or others, which prevents us from doing what's known as an involuntary commitment. But then you also have the other end where we have people who are committing crimes and then they're deemed potentially not to be competent to stand trial. So they're trying to determine a middle ground. I know I walked with Mayor Durkin when she walked through Ballard, and so I'm not speaking out of pocket. This is something that they're looking at regionally as a regional response to the county. So, but they will not be dealing with the people in crisis.
I don't want to forget before the second part of your question. Are you okay with it, skipping it, or did you?
I'm
You're
not
good?
entirely happy, but let's go
Okay.
on and see what else other people have.
And you're good.
So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I'd love to understand better what success looks like in a year from now, because I understand you're still forming this, and that I'm kind of getting the sense that you're really going to be helping and servicing the police who want to be on the priority one calls. But my second part of my question was, if you have sort of a nascent understanding of what success might look like in a year, and what services you're providing, and how we're going to feel a difference from the investment in this team, which I believe in very much, by the way, what is the risks that you see that we should be aware of for you to obtain that success?
I think it's a really loaded question, and I think it's a valid one, but I think that the issue is going to be dialogue. And we're here at this meeting tonight, and I think that this is something that we can continue to discuss, because you may be the answer to that question. It's like further conversations about what does success look like. Maybe you are going to be the ones that say, you know what, I see a difference by some of the things that you're doing in our community. So I don't think that we're prepared to be able to answer such a question like that right now. It's one, because of we just started, we're like 2 weeks in. So, I think it's just gonna take a little bit of time for us to get to a point where we'll be able to answer that for you, honestly.
I was thinking more in terms of resources, training, authority, those sort of things.
Again, I think that, like longer, like engagement with you in this meeting, coming back here, like doing follow-up, these are the type of things that we want to focus on. We don't want to, our contact is, this is not going to be the last time that you see us and meet with us. And it's not going to be the last time that you can ask that exact same question. And maybe after we go back and we huddle, because we're going to huddle sometime tomorrow and think, like, oh my gosh, those are tough questions. And then we're going to say, oh man, we're going to be like, we're so much more prepared like now to understand like what the community is expecting from us, because this is where we're going to learn. And you are actually helping us learn and develop like right now. This is like a great learning experience as we continue to build this team. And so it's a very tough question, but I appreciate it.
It was not my intention.
Oh, no, it's okay. Whoever was first, you can direct questions, Angie. Okay. We'll let you direct questions because we don't want to. Okay.
Can I go first, Brenda?
You may. Okay.
There's one here too. I would love to ask, I think the word community has become a really popular word in a lot of programs lately. Neighborhood is out, community is in. So we have community police commission, community service officers, community police team. There's a lot of different things with community in the title of it that have to do with public safety. But I'm curious, at what point might the resources actually be community-based? Is that ever going to be a part of the program, or will you always be kind of citywide and just going kind of where the need is, the data-driven type of policing? At what point, I feel like the goal is to have police be from communities, represent communities, and have some diversity in terms of how they interact with different communities. But I haven't really heard that so much from this program yet, and so I wasn't sure if that's 5 years down the line or not really.
Yeah, once our team expands, then maybe Cindy and Amanda will be in this neighborhood, so you'll get to interact and be community-based.
Okay, so there's hope for the.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that we want to be really flexible, and we want like every member of this team, regardless of where they come from, to understand the North Precinct and the North Precinct community. We don't want to be locked into this is the only 2 people that you will ever deal with, because
for sure. But just to be recognizable.
Right, but at some point, yes, you will get your fair share of community service officer engaging with you and as a resource and being able to someone maybe to go to.
You want to do it, Brian?
I don't know if it's my turn or not, but so I guess since I'm facilitating, I can just hog the floor for 1 second. I guess a couple things I wanted to say. First off, we're happy to act in that kind of helping you figure out how exactly the recipe should go, I think, as community participants, as the community out here. Certainly we're supportive of you not knowing exactly where everything's going to go at this sort of like really formulaic time, or time in which you're formulating it. And I think, to my mind, some of the answers to the question about what success should look like is first, we're looking for relationships, and you kind of said this too, like the more we can build relationships across this geographic community and the different kinds of human communities kind of within this geographic area, that will go a long way, because it's tough to do with an overstrained patrol force that exists out here now. I'm sure the captain can speak a long time about that. And then I also just kind of want to ask the question about kind of following up on what we're talking about with mental health. Sort of, I understand crisis and kind of the need for like a patrol officer to respond to a crisis situation, but then a lot of things go on to a post-crisis kind of place, right? With mental health issues, or with substance issues, or just with issues dealing with poverty in the streets. How much is it envisioned that you would liaise in that role? And something that's like really post-emergent,
Something I'm actually excited about is I've worked in Ballard for quite a while with the RVs and seen the population. I started in Magnolia, and then as everything moved over this direction, one of the things I'm looking forward to is working the long term, finding out what the next step is. Instead of just us moving you know, the RV from one block to the other. Let's try and actually get them out. And in the position I was before, I was building good relationships with them, but I was only able to take it so far. And so I'm hoping that now, because everyone needs time, you know, and the expectation when I first started was like, let's get you out, you know, let's go to the next, they're not ready. So I'm hoping in this new position, I will be able to go out there a week later and say, hey, you know, it's getting colder. What does it look like for you? And to be able to have the resources, and it's really exciting trying to get people housed in shelters in the next step. Having someone on our team that's actually done the diversion and actually worked in Mary's place is huge to me, knowing the inner workings and being able to work with the other resources that we have, reach. We have the system navigators that have been amazing to be able to direct and get people to the next step. But in this new position, I'm hoping I can do the follow-up, or we can do the follow-up. I was out with patrol today just kind of doing, you know, just seeing things, because we're just looking at things. Like, if I need to stop me, please. But there was a gentleman that sleeps on the same corner every day. The businesses is not calling him in, because he's like right close to the building, real tight up to the building. He was actually neat and tidy. But he sleeps there every day. He's an elderly gentleman, and he's just really comfortable there. It was raining when we were out there, but we just stopped. We spoke to him. The officer that I was with knows me prior, just from being on the department, and just to see where he's at. And you know, are you ready? Are you okay? And he didn't want to uncover. You know, he was warm, and he's like, no, I'm good right now. But I envision, when I seen that situation, I envision that I might be able to go out there again tomorrow or the next day, not on this, but be able to keep going to see him and just say, hey, this isn't a good spot. Why do you like this spot? Because even with RVs, we see that there's a reason that brings them back to their block. That might have been somewhere that they lived previously and they were evicted out of the house, but now they're still kind of stuck in that community. That's comfort to them. And just finding out what their root cause is, and in patrol or even in parking enforcement, there was not the time. And the city's kind of looking at giving us the opportunity to grow the relationships in all different levels, to get out there, to work with everyone, the stakeholders, the businesses, the neighbors, because hopefully you'll see us going to that same park, same person, trying to get them to their next step, whatever it may be. And with the resources, we're able to drill down a little bit more versus me in the parking enforcement world. I would call and they'd be like, great, I'll try and get out there tomorrow. Or, oh, they moved. And so that like trying to find them the next time was always difficult. So this way we're all, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. He always sleeps in this corner, but he's not there. He wears a red cap and a sleeping bag. So we can kind of follow through. And
Brent, you mentioned building relationships, and that's obviously what we're trying to be about.
So,
Should we try to
I was trying to administrate, yeah. We have probably about 5 or maybe 6 minutes. We should maybe see if we can get 2 more questions asked.
And we will just hang out back there, like after this, so we're not gonna run out the door. So we'll be available for questions. So you direct, Rick, who's gonna get the next question.
Oh, no, you get picked, sorry.
This side of the room, this gentleman here, because he's
thrilled to see you here, and the set of skill sets and diversity is tremendous. There's a tremendous need here. I'm thinking about how does this roll out, kind of the deployment. So if there'll be 10, 13 of you in March, and then coming around, will you have a presence? Would you use the neighborhood service center? Would there be, will you be deployed around the city and would respond to that patrol call? And then the other deployment would be somebody calls in and says, there's this situation. How does that get logged? And does somebody get sent out? Do you have a goal? I mean, I know you're not quite there yet, but pragmatically, so you're going to have somebody come to the person who called to try and get the issue squared away?
Yeah, we spoke to it a little bit earlier. It's like right now we're out of headquarters downtown. So we're currently setting up all the logistics of how this could actually work, because there's so many different factors with traffic and that type of thing. So one of these CSOs, if they're assigned to the North Precinct for a day or a month or a year, they need to be able to get to work in a timely manner so they can actually serve you somehow. So we need to have like stations set up that they can actually be able to get to work at a satellite location, like maybe at the North Precinct. They'll have laptops, so you never know. They may just be working at 8 o'clock in the morning when the library opens up at where you guys hold your meetings. We're still trying to figure out the actual deployment, how that's actually gonna look. But there's a lot of autonomy right now, and a lot of freedom and flexibility to engage as much as possible with the community. And so we're gonna be responding to the things that you ask us. You know, honestly, there will be an email. We actually, Amanda came up with this email, that you can email, it's not set up yet, so please don't. You'll break the system and come over to the email. But it's gonna be an email that you can actually send, like any question that you have related to the CSO program to this email. And myself or Chris or whomever we delegate will be able to like get back to you, respond to you, and take either your suggestion or your concern, and we'll either pass it up, because some things we won't be able to handle, or we shouldn't handle, if it's related to crisis, and I can't put these officers in harm's way. But we can refer some of those things to police to make sure that there's some type of a handoff, and then follow up with you. If you say that handoff didn't happen, what's up? We can say, okay, give us another chance, and then we can continue to build that relationship with you, so that you don't think that you never got responded to. So that's a little bit of what I envision. That's a little bit what our goal is. We want to make sure that this is not the first or the last time that you see us. We hope that we see you like a ton more.
Well, I hope if you get comfortable with the idea of the Northwest precincts. And or the neighborhood service center in Ballard.
You want one more back there? Yeah, very, very back there.
There are a good number of people in this community that do a lot of work with homeless people and in a variety of capacities. And I'm hoping that we can introduce ourselves to you and that you will make us work our little butts off, okay? Because we are acquainted with the neighborhood, we've done a lot of things, people know who we are, and we're very committed to the work we do.
Yes,
and we would like to have even more to do.
We will come to you whenever Angie has my card, you can grab one from her, and we'll come to you whenever we can make something happen.
I'll just say, Jody is the kind of person who will publicly publish her cell phone number and go pick up needles if someone needs needles picked up.
Yes.
If we have time for one more, because this gentleman
Within 10
here.
minutes.
Yeah, and then I think that could be it for us.
That's all right. I was kind of trying to piece together how you're fitting on the proactive versus reactive policing kind of scale. It seems like your unit is more reactive and clean up after the
Maybe. I would argue that we're more proactive outreach.
Okay, well, cool.
Yeah.
And the thing that the proactive I thought was really good that you spoke of at the beginning was youth engagement. And didn't hear any details on how you might envision that. And then there's, so that education, youth kind of thing.
Yeah, so Justin has tons of experience like working with youth in his community on his off time, and we're trying to bring those type of personal experiences to every community. So in terms of like youth engagement diversion, we already have like a CPAL program that went throughout the department, but we don't know what it looks like 100% just yet, but we will be involved with our current partners, and we probably we'll get ideas from you in terms of what you want to see in your community. If we can do something and we can run with it, by all means, we'll give it a go. This is one of the most exciting times in policing that I've ever had in the 21 years I've been doing this. I almost can't believe that this is my team. You know, I get paid to do this. I get paid to you really, really make a difference and be a change agent. Like these guys will be change agents for the community. We may not always be able to track it because honestly, it's really difficult to track like anything, crime. Sometimes crime happens in neighborhoods, people don't call the police because they say, what's the point? Well, you know what? you need to be reporting those crimes anyway, because if those calls don't come in, it never happened. So whether you get the response you need, those type of calls still need to be made. I don't care if it's a tricycle. You make the call to 911, non-emergency. My tricycle got stolen, because you know what? Those calls get put in the system somehow, some way. We need to know where your needs are. So that's related to like crime, but like tracking this, I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not gonna pretend like I have an answer for you in just a second. But we're working like really, really hard. We're obviously up at 8 o'clock at night. And you know, as we build our relationships further, I think that if you ask that question again, I will hope that we have a better answer for you.
Yeah, okay. Well, sorry to thank you. We'll definitely look forward to having you back and to keep doing that. I'm sorry we don't have more time.
That's okay.
Keep going, but I think chapters 2, 3, and keeping